All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're looking at a pretty fundamental computing problem today. We constantly obsess over how fast a processor is, but here's the reality. Having a lightning fast brain for math absolutely doesn't matter if your hands are just too slow to fetch the information. So today, we're exploring the critical bottleneck in CPU and GPU performance. We're going to see exactly how computer scientists measure, visualize, and ultimately break through these physical hardware limitations. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be measuring computing speed, balancing computation versus communication, calculating arithmetic intensity, visualizing things with the Roofline model, and finally looking at optimizing GPU memory. Okay, part one, measuring computing speed. This is the theoretical maximum. So let's start with pure computation, flops. It stands for floating point operations per second, and it measures raw mathematical speed. Think of this like a master chef chopping up ingredients at just an incredible rate. When we talk about flops, we're literally just counting how many of these basic math operations, like addition or multiplication, our hardware can crunch through in a single second. Let's look at a quick example of how we actually count this. Imagine a simple loop executing this line, x equals a times b plus x. That is exactly two operations, right? One multiply, one add. If our algorithm runs this loop, say 50 times, we just multiply those two operations by 50, yielding exactly 100 flops for that specific function call. And if the processor takes exactly 1 second to do this, well, its performance is 100 flops. Simple, right? It's just a pure measure of computational work. Moving on to part two, computation versus communication. This is the physical reality of moving data. And here is where we hit a massive real-world bottleneck. Every program is basically a constant tug of war. We have to balance computation, which is the actual math we just measured in flops, against communication. And communication is the agonizingly slow process of fetching data from the main memory, or DRAM, and actually bringing it to the processor. Because at the end of the day, you can't compute what you don't have. Take a look at the physical distance data actually has to travel in this memory hierarchy. Down at the bottom, in red, we have the main memory, the DRAM. For data to be processed, it has to climb all the way up through the shared L3 cache, then into the individual L2 caches, up through the L1 caches, and finally into those green CPU cores at the very top. Every single step up this ladder takes precious, precious time. To make this a bit more visceral, let's attach some numbers to that climb. A CPU register is right there inside the core, so accessing it takes just one CPU cycle, super fast. But look at the bottom of the table. Fetching data all the way from the main memory takes a whopping 200 cycles. Think of it like cooking. Grabbing an ingredient sitting right there on your cutting board takes 1 second, but realizing you need to fetch it from the main memory grocery store down the street, that takes 200 seconds. Because memory operations are so incredibly slow, we absolutely have to do as many math operations as possible with a piece of data once we finally manage to load it. So part three. Calculating arithmetic intensity. How do we measure our data efficiency? Well, because communication is so devastatingly slow, we need a diagnostic tool to tell us how efficiently we're using the data we just spent 200 cycles fetching. Enter arithmetic intensity, or AI. This is a vital metric that essentially tells us how much math we get done for every single byte of data we're forced to move. High arithmetic intensity algorithms are fantastic because they perform wonderfully. They don't get bogged down waiting for those slow grocery store deliveries. And the formula to find our arithmetic intensity, it's brilliantly simple. We just take our total number of computations, our flops, and divide it by our total amount of data transfer, or memory traffic, in bytes. Flops divided by bytes. Let's actually walk through a real example to see how this builds. We'll calculate the arithmetic intensity for an array multiplication function sequentially. It's just 3 steps. Count the flops, calculate the memory traffic in bytes, and divide. Let's do the math. Okay, imagine a loop multiplying an array by a constant and adding it to another array. To execute just one pass of this loop, we have to load 2 values from memory and then store 1 value back. Now, if we're using standard double precision numbers, each of those values is 8 bytes. So, 2 loads at 8 bytes plus 1 store at 8 bytes, that gives us 24 bytes of traffic per loop iteration. Now, what about the actual math? Well, we do 1 multiply and 1 add. That's just 2 flops. So for a loop of size n, we have 2n flops and 24n bytes of traffic. Following our final step, when we divide the 2n flops by the 24n bytes of traffic, the n's just cancel out.
and we are left with an arithmetic intensity of 1/12. I want you to really think about what this means in the real world. For every 12 bytes of data we painstakingly drag from memory across that massive communication bottleneck, we only execute a single mathematical operation. Honestly, that is a highly inefficient use of bandwidth.
All right, part 4, the Roofline Performance Model. Let's visualize these limits.
So, code execution runtime is determined by whichever is greater, the time spent doing computation or the time spent doing communication. Even with perfect overlap, your overall performance is constrained by a strict mathematical equation. Your maximum speed in gigaflops per second is the lesser of two things, either the absolute peak processing speed of the hardware or your arithmetic intensity multiplied by the peak memory bandwidth. Plotting that equation creates a literal roof on our performance graph. See that horizontal pink line? That's the absolute peak computing speed your hardware can physically perform. But look at the slanted blue slope. That is your memory bandwidth limit. If your arithmetic intensity is low, kind of like our 1/12 example from earlier, you are trapped on that blue line. Unless your code's arithmetic intensity is high enough to climb all the way up that bandwidth slope, you will never, ever hit the peak speed of your hardware. Your processor is just sitting there, literally starving for data. Finally, part 5, optimizing GPU memory. How do we break this bottleneck? So if fetching data limits our speed so much, how do programmers beat this memory bottleneck, especially on modern GPUs? Well, by comparing CPU and GPU code for matrix multiplication, we can see a brilliant architectural trick. On a standard CPU, you might just blindly loop through global memory over and over again. But on a GPU, programmers leverage these incredibly fast shared memory blocks. They explicitly pull data from the slow global memory into these on-chip spaces. The shared memory is located right there with the processor threads, completely bypassing that massive 200-cycle delay of main memory. The ultimate software trick to utilize this hardware is called data blocking or tiling. Instead of grabbing single numbers, we partition our vast data matrices into smaller, manageable tiles. We take one tile from the slow global memory, copy it into that lightning-fast shared memory, and then, here's the magic, we force our multi-threads to reuse that exact same data block for as many calculations as possible before we ever load the next tile. By reusing the data, we drastically reduce our memory traffic. This artificially skyrockets our arithmetic intensity and pushes our performance right up to the top of the roofline. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to wrap up this explainer. Our processors are getting faster and faster at crunching flops, but memory bandwidth simply isn't scaling at the same astronomical rate. As we push for even faster artificial intelligence and massive computing tasks, what new architectural tricks are going to be required to keep our processors from starving for data? Are we going to have to completely merge memory and processing into one unit? It truly is the ultimate bottleneck of modern computing. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.